The Blast from Our Past Network.
Hi, this is Diane Franklin. I am the actress from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, Better Off Dead, and Last American Virgin, and you are listening to Podcasting After Dark.
Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura, a deep dive into underrated and unknown television shows from our youth. Cartoons, sitcoms, cop shows, and much more. Sit back and enjoy some nostalgic fun with TV Obscura.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura. I am 1/3 of the TV Obscura team, Corey, aka Sleazy C. Joined with me, as always, ever since episode 2 of TV Obscura, is Diallo, the Armageddon, and as always is Zach, the Snack. What's up, guys? Diallo, man, how are you doing? I feel like we haven't talked to you in forever because, as most of our listeners know, Zach and I were on vacation for about a month, and I use quotations in the air because while I was on vacation, Zach was not.
Nope.
But Diallo, we have not talked to you in forever. How's it going, my man?
I'm doing good. You know, been watching you guys travel the world, having fun. I've been sitting here in my in front of my desk the entire time.
In beautiful Santa Monica, though.
Yeah, no true complaints. I actually just flew in from Northern California today, so I did a little traveling myself this past week.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah.
very
Nice.
cool. Did you
Yeah.
go see family up north?
Yeah, it was a big family get together, intended to be, but we were gonna meet in Tahoe, but Tahoe's on fire right now, so that got canceled. So we just met at my parents' house and saw the whole family. It was real fun.
Oh, good. I'm glad you got to have like a bit of a reunion, even though Tahoe's on fire, kind of like Oregon too.
Yeah,
It's wild times. On the
Wild
West Coast.
times.
Zach, how are you doing, buddy?
Fantastic that we're recording and I'm not running a summer camp, so I'm glad to be back in the real world, so to speak.
And your voice sounds amazing.
Thanks. It feels amazing too. I don't feel hoarse anymore. I feel like I've been through desert and a horse with no name. I'm feeling good. The way you introduced the three of us, I'm like, I wanted to just let everybody know we're not doing a TV Obscura wrestling themed episode where everyone has a
Maybe
nickname.
one day we will, because
I hope so.
Oh my God.
I am not the biggest wrestling fan, but I am flanked by two people who are, and Luke, who I grew up with, is a huge wrestling fan, my buddy Xair. So I'm surrounded by wrestling fans all the time. So I gather information like osmosis.
Well, I have two ideas down the pipe. One of which is made for TV movies would be a great topic to do.
Oh yeah.
And then either we all watch one episode of Saturday Night's Main Event or Clash of the Champions or Monday Nitro, some old school 80s, early 90s wrestling.
I am 100% on board with that, and then we can obviously talk about the rock and wrestling cartoon as well, and I am on board with both of those ideas. The made-for-TV movie is because I could talk Langoliers, baby.
Oh my God. Oh, did you just say Langoliers? Oh my God.
Yeah,
My heart.
I'd go Nick Knight. That's just because I'm a Rick Springfield fan.
Oh, nice. Good old Rick Springfield.
But yeah, one of us you could do rock and wrestling cartoon. Diallo could do Saturday Night's Main Event, and I could do Clash of the Champions. There you go, done. Just figured out wrestling.
Done.
So,
Boom.
Perfect.
coming soon.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. But before we jump into that, this episode is a sci-fi episode. All the TV shows have a sci-fi sort of spin to them, and I dare say all of them have something to say. Like most good sci-fi usually does have something to say, but boy oh boy, two of these three shows were ahead of its time, I'd say, and then one show comes from the frickin' master Gene Roddenberry. So we have some big topics to discuss, but we will go in this order. Zach will walk us through Otherworld from 1985. It was one season. Then I will talk about Space Above and Beyond, 1995, one season. And then Diallo will bring us home with Earth, Final Conflict, 1997, 5 seasons for this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, okay, now, I don't know how obscure it is, but I think at this point, and we've kind of mentioned it before, I feel like we kind of look at it through a lens of right now, like meaning like not too many people are talking about Earth Final Conflict anymore these days, and I think there's other shows that will pop up on TV Obscura that have like 5 or 6 seasons, mainly because nowadays they're obscure. So, that's in my head canon.
Well, there's a reason. There's a reason why it's obscure now, but we'll get into it.
Okay. I mean, it's obscure to me because when you mentioned it, I was like, holy crap! It flooded me with those late '90s nostalgia of seeing on the ads for it and everything. So I was like, oh man, I remember this one. But before we get there, woo, 1985, Otherworld, a show that I have never ever heard of. But after watching the pilot, boy, am I on board for. Zach, take us to the alternate dimension.
Oh boy, buddy boy, y'all in for a treat. Diallo knows this one really well, just because he went down a rabbit hole with it fairly recently. But the reason I brought this one to the table, short, little quick backstory, was I do pretty extensive research on celebrities, actors, performers when I make these little birthday collages for $2 late fees Instagram post. And I was doing one for Jonathan Banks, who most people know nowadays as Mike from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. But besides that, if you go way back into his early 80s career, he was in 48 Hours and he was in Beverly Hills Cop. And he was in a little TV show called Otherworld, where he plays the lead villain, Kroll. This show ran for only 8 episodes on CBS in 1985. In fact, if you go on YouTube, someone did compile all 8 episodes, but there is one version of the pilot episode that's available that still has the commercials from CBS in Los Angeles from 1985.
Oh no, that's not the one I watched.
Yeah, that's not the one I watched either. Oh man.
Yeah, and I meant to send that one to you guys. If you just do a random search of episode 1, it'll come up. It's marked as 56 minutes, so that'll give you an idea.
Yeah. Okay.
But man, it talk about a wayback machine. It takes you back to like Ford is all over Sunday nights, and then there's promos for Airwolf. There's promos for Cover Up.
Cover Up.
Yeah. I remember that one.
I didn't realize that show actually ran after Mark Eric Hexum died. They actually replaced him with somebody else and then continued to run the show. Mm-hmm. So there's a promo for that. I'm like, oh, I know that actor. Oh, I know that actor. Great commercials, really funny stuff. So I highly recommend people go check out that 56-minute episode of the pilot to Otherworld. But Otherworld centers around this family, the Sterlings, who are like explorers, basically. And they're in Egypt, and they go into a pyramid, and the pyramid mysteriously transports them into another dimension. And the basis for all 8 episodes is each episode that kind of centers around them being in a new area of this dimension and having to get out for some reason. Their lives are in peril. In the opening episode, the family literally runs into Kroll, who's like this villainous general for like this overlord army that's basically watching over everyone in this world. And they escape him, wind up in this town. Ray Walston from Mr. Hand fame and
Lost in Space.
Lost in
Favorite
Space
Martian.
and no. My Favorite Martian. Yeah, My Favorite Martian. He has a cameo in this as well, and they assume the identities of these other people, and they live in this town. Little do they know that all the people in the town, or soon they find out, all the people in the town are androids, and one of which is played by Amanda Wyss, of Better Off Dead, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and A Nightmare on Elm Street fame. Plays the love interest of Trace Sterling, who's the son of the Sterlings, played by Tony O'Dell. Tony O'Dell is from the TV show Head of the Class. He's also a member of the Cobra Kai. He is recently in the new series Cobra Kai, has a cameo in that.
Was he the one with the bald head? Is he the guy that has the bald head in the No, okay.
Nope, he's got a full head of hair and pretty much says nothing. Okay. Yeah, he didn't have a big role in the Cobra Kai, but he's mostly known for Head of the Class. I think people would definitely recognize. Oh, he was also in Chopping Mall as well. But yeah, he's probably the most well-known of the Sterlings. Sam Groom plays Hal Sterling. Gretchen Corbett plays June Sterling. And Joanna Lee plays Gina Sterling. Relatively unknown, definitely unknown probably to today's audience. Way back when, these people were all over TV shows and various 80s movies, but nothing that really stands out per se. But what I love about this show, and the reason I chose it besides the connection with Jonathan Banks, who I think is a phenomenal actor, and what a career this guy's had, by the way, you know, to have a huge 80s career and then to go on and have like this resurgence now, thanks to Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, just as an all-around badass, just fantastic. This show is very it's got a synth wavy soundtrack, which is phenomenal in my opinion. It's very like Trancers, like Richard Band-esque, even though Richard Band didn't do the soundtrack for Trancers, but it has that kind of that 80s synthwave sound. The story itself is really interesting because obviously they're trying to find a way to get back home in every episode, and this one in particular gets intense because they realize that there's a level of radiation in this little village, in this zone that they're in, and that's why everyone in this zone are androids, because they are not exposed to the radiation. So there's this cool dynamic of tension. There's a lot of tension in this episode, which I love in the 60 minutes of the show. Yeah, I think it only ran for 8 episodes because it pretty much was way ahead of its time. People have compared this to Sliders in one sense, which I think is a cool connection, because I think Sliders was a great show too, maybe ahead of its time as well, perhaps. But the fact that this came out in 85, it was different from what was on TV at the time. I can't think of anything that was quite like this. It's aesthetically, it's got a beautiful look to it. They obviously film on backlots and sets. Apparently some of the original matte paintings in the background were later used in Star Trek The Next Generation, which is kind of a fun fact. Oh, wow. But I love this show, and it's worth just watching all 8. I think Diallo, you watched 4 or 5 of the episodes, right? And
yeah,
I mean, I loved it. So that's my 2 cents about Otherworld. Otherworld, boom.
Diallo, you liked it. It made you take a dive further into it. What grabbed you about it?
Yeah, I actually I think I mentioned it to you guys. I stumbled across this last year. I had never. It's a weird one because I had never heard of this show ever. Ever. It was I'm pretty especially if it's sci-fi. I might have even heard of it, or I remember watching it at some point, but I've never heard of it. And I was looking at I guess we were looking at some of the other shows that we were kind of talking about, and I found this channel that had like a ton of stuff, and I saw Otherworld, and I was like, what's this? And for me, as a comic book fan, Otherworld is like kind of tied to Captain Britain, so it kind of drew me in to at least watch it. And I was like, I watched the pilot episode and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like I just, and then I was looking at the, because it was in 1985, it really, like, it blew me away that there was this show of this like imagination and this setup in this time, you know? But I think like what you were, like what you're asking, like what drew me in, I think it's just the, you know, we always go back to this whole idea of, but ahead of its time. And as I was watching it, trying to figure out what the show was, I looked at, again, just how imaginative it was, like the premise and the concept of it. It almost was like they just weren't ready to do what they needed to do with it in terms of like special effects or
budget,
like,
maybe.
But yeah, budget, how to tell the story. Because actually there's a problem I have with, not have with it, but there's a problem when it comes to how they tell the story a lot of times. But
Oh, there's narration. Are you talking about the narration?
well, yeah, the narration's part of it, but it's just they kind of like they kind of get thrown into this world, and then they're just like, oh, we're here, you know, we're gonna get a house now. We're gonna like, you know, just it's kind of weird, but I just went along with it. It's like whatever, but I don't know.
So
There
much
was
information for them that they were throwing at. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
There's like. I was right there with you. I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, wait a minute. But you're just like, you don't have enough time to even dwell on it because something else is happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just kind of push it aside and go with the flow, you know?
Yeah. I think there was like a passage of time that they didn't really go much into that would kind of explain some of the reasons why they were in the positions they were in. But again, I didn't really care. I just really it was just the whole idea of this imaginative other world that they were in, and there was just something about it that just like pulled me in like a year ago when I watched the pilot episode, and then when when Zach brought this show up again, I was like, oh man, I actually remember seeing that. So I watched it, and again I was hanging out with my parents, and we were supposed to be up in the forest doing stuff, but the forest was on fire, so I just watched a whole bunch of YouTube. And and I kept watching episode after episode, and I was just I was dissecting it. I was watching their performances, kind of thinking about how they could do it better or different today. But yeah, it's definitely in that class of like just a kind of ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Zach,
I was gonna say, yeah, Zach, you had something to say?
Yeah, before you chime in, Corey, you know, there's when they get transported into the new dimension, and the way it's done is very dramatic, right? Where they come out of they come out of water, and like they've been birthed, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's this really like slowed down, slow motion. The lighting is really interesting, and the synth track is like very Tangerine Dream-esque, and it's very creepy in a way. And then suddenly they're, you know, walking like the Griswolds in the desert.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I know what you're saying about like the tonal shifts at times, and the budget. Like, I'm a huge fan of like DIY special effects where it's just so low budge, but they're just doing the best they can with what they got. And there's something charming about that too, in a way, where you just gotta believe it. Maybe it's because I spent 5 weeks like pretending that, you know, people with horns on their head were satyrs. But to me, like that, I totally see that side where you're like, oh, suddenly you're acclimating to this new community and acting like everything's fine and nobody's questioning it. It is a trip, but yeah, that I just had to point out that birthing scene as they enter the new dimension. It's very trippy.
Yeah, no, I loved that scene. I noted that. I was like, holy cow, this is really freaking cool. Yeah, I'll just say nothing could prepare me for that pilot. Like Diallo, knowing nothing about
You're
it,
welcome.
never even heard of it. And yeah, also like Diallo, like I'm into sci-fi, so I'm at least aware of things. So having no clue about something, I was like, I have no idea what this is. But yeah, the concept, what they're trying to do is right up my alley. As a comic book reader, this all feels familiar to me now. But, you know, I think that, like, as a show back in 1985, and probably the reasoning for some of the tonal shifts and the problems, first off, everything that happens in episode 1 could be an entire season of something, or at least like a 3-episode arc of a bigger show. Like they had to do a lot in that first episode and absorb a lot. But yet, a lot of cool crap happened in it. But at the same time, you got to figure like now, yes, the show will come out about time, jumping across, dimensions, and you can look at Quantum Leap, you can look at Sliders. This show didn't have anything it could sort of look at and be like, oh, they did this right here, let me do that. They were a trailblazer. And again, just in the first episode, 44-minute episode, I mean, they're dealing with, like, do robots have, a soul? Can they love? I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's some heady shit that they're trying to deal with, but at the same time, you can tell they're trying to be not quite as kiddie as Land of the Lost, but also not like a serious show. You can tell they're trying to be all ages, but at the same time they want to be doing something big. And you have this villain who's fantastic. I mean, the first episode also has James Hampton from fucking Teen Wolf, the dad from Teen Wolf,
Yes,
and
that's right.
And Amanda,
great cameo.
And Amanda Weiss.
Rest in peace.
It's just like, holy crap. It's like, and this first episode's amazing. And it's just, but I get why it was only 8 episodes for the time, because they probably didn't know what to do with it, where to put it, who the audience was, what the budget for this thing was, because there's like, not only are they in at least Sliders, I feel like you would go to a different dimension and it would just look like, Earth. Here they are trying to make it as foreign and different as an alien planet in like Star Trek, but on a budget that you can tell is not that. So I applaud them for what they pulled off in this first episode. And like, knowing that, like, I mean, this is it. This was the whole story with the robots is over. They're on to like something else in the next episode. Like, holy crap! Like, that intrigues me to no end. And like, and I assume that as you keep going, you keep building the world and seeing what the world's all about and everything. But it's so cool. The best parts of the show is when they are the fish out of water and you're learning about this like this other planet that's so foreign that, to the point where the guns are like, they shoot their guns upside down. And I'm like, okay, it's such a cool thing, because it's like, hey, we got our guns, just have them upside down. Why not, right? Because it's a whole nother universe. They're doing things differently. It's so dang cool. I highly recommend checking this out, and I would like to move forward with it. The video's not that bad quality wise, but it's it's 1985. It's got some 1985 trashiness to it, but that's okay. It's what makes it charming.
I think the second episode had it was actually pretty interesting, because it was the older son. It was like they were in school again. It was like, how did you get into the whole education system and you living in this house and everything's fine? But neither here nor there. He had to like get a certain level of grades in order to stay in the school or something like that. And if he scored too low, he had to join their sort of like Army Corps. And it was the same Army Corps that was like chasing after them. It was actually really interesting, and it had like a lot of family dynamics to it. And again, it's crazy how that was all in one episode, like you were saying, Corey. Like the pilot episode could have been an entire season. Today it would have been an entire season. But that second episode still, it has this quality of like getting into the world, but I don't know that they were really into doing that at that time. But it did illuminate a little bit about kind of what was going on there. So it was there's something about it that just was really fascinating to me, and I wanted to find out more. And you're never going to really find out what that is, but it's worth the journey for those episodes that they have.
Yeah, there's it's a shame, because you feel like, oftentimes with a lot of the shows that we watch, they say the same thing. Oh, if this could only have come out, X amount of time later, or if this could have come out when, that would have been, we would have had multiple seasons or something, right? But unfortunately, we only got the 8. But the 8 are really cool. I do want to point out, just because I think it's worth noting, Thomas Newman. This show had 3 composers, and one of which was Thomas Newman. Now, I didn't watch the end credits of the episode, and that's typically where because the music wasn't listed in the opening. But I feel like he could have done the music for the first episode potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Newman's one of my favorite composers because he scored Real Genius, which I think is one of the best underrated film scores for a 80s movie. And then Sylvester LeVay did 6 episodes, and he did the music for Cobra and Howard the Duck. He helped out for, and did some music on Carlito's Way and Boogie Nights.
Oh,
Nice.
But anyways, Thomas Newman makes sense because this just feels, he has a very synthy kind of with a guitar background too. So anyways.
And I also want to point out that the mom, June Sterling, played by Gretchen Corbett, she actually was in the new movie Pig with Nicolas Cage, and I haven't seen it yet, but it's been getting a lot of really good reviews. So it'll probably pop up on my radar at some point, and I would like to watch it. But yeah, so she's still working, and she's in some big stuff. So good for her.
Yeah, she was a regular on Magnum PI, I guess, for a while, and Rockford Files. So there you go.
Yeah. Two awesome shows right there. Yeah, dude.
She's
Otherworld,
good.
man.
I mean, the whole dynamic with her getting sick in the first episode, and the radiation, and the threat that they have to get out of there before they all start dying, and Amanda Wyss being the android that Trace falls in love with.
I fell in love too.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, people forget about Amanda Wyss. I think sometimes that there's a reason why in Better Off Dead, Lane Meyer is obsessed with her when she breaks up with him and he wants to commit suicide throughout the whole movie, or she dumps Judge Reinhold in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And then, of course, she's our buddy Jesus Garcia's girlfriend in Nightmare. She's the first kill. She's Freddy's first kill in the Nightmare series.
Yeah.
So,
arguably, probably still my favorite kill in the entire series.
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah.
It is the best kill. It's the creepiest kill. It's the best kill.
Yeah. Followed up, my second favorite one is the homage kill in A New Nightmare.
Yes, I would agree with you.
And by the way, I'm just scrolling through the IMDb for this, man. John Astin was in an episode.
Yep.
Mark Leonard. From
that's
Star
right.
Trek.
Yeah, Mark Leonard
he
was in the
it.
second or third episode. Yeah.
But of course, Jonathan Banks, like right out of the gate, like in the very first episode, the very first scene, the dude like just eats up the entire screen. You know what I mean, with his presence, and you're just like, wow, yeah, he's always on point whenever I see him on anything.
And he's ruthless. There's killing in this. There's like it's of course it's android killing, so they can get away with it, quote unquote. But it's ruthless, brutal killing in this show. Actually, in the first episode, it's pretty dark. I mean, it's a dark show.
Yeah, and I mean,
It's a dark show.
Not to mention the concepts they're dealing with is some fucking like at this point in time in 2021, you would say it's like ancient alien shit. I mean, they're talking about like dimensional travel, through the pyramid when the stars align, and the society on the other side of the planet said people used to come through and actually like do things and then go back to their planet as like kings and stuff, and it just was like and this was before like Stargate and stuff like that, like. Jesus, I can only imagine the people at Stargate in the back of their head, somebody had to have like watched this at some point, and
totally with the Egyptian, totally.
But yeah, you're 100% right. The when they like get birthed in the next world in the water scene, and it's all like slow motion and everything. It was
creepy.
actually real. It was what it was. It was filmic. It was a shot and a scene that I would expect to see in a movie, not on 1985 TV.
Yeah, because like Diallo was saying, like in one minute they're having like a sitcom-y kind of conversation, and it's very silly and jokey and I know you didn't say that, Diallo, but I was just kind of vibing off it. The tonal shifts are weird.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was thinking. Like in the opening sequence when they're in that the cafe or that outdoor cafe or whatever, like you said, they're having this kind of jokey, quippy, back and forth family thing, like, "Oh, Johnny, you're so silly," that kind of stuff. And then the next thing you know, it's like dark and mysterious, and then they're out. After that, they're walking in the desert, like, here we are.
or the next scene, Amanda Weiss's Nova character shows Trace like where her soul is. She points to like this like dot that's on like a giant grid of like these all represent other androids, and she's like, that dot right there, that's my soul. Like, and then she says something like, where's yours, or show me yours, and he can't. And I was like, that's when I was like, Jesus, this show is really trying to say something and like like have like just some. It's trying to have a conversation, but I don't think that the world was ready in 1985 for that kind of a conversation.
Not on TV.
But the world was ready for that amazing montage that Trace and Nova had when they were falling in love with each other. That's amazing. That's an amazing love montage where they're like, experiencing new things together. It's very romantic for 1985. I love it.
Well,
I love that montage.
He was a heartthrob.
He
sure was.
Yeah, he was falling in love with quite a few women fell in love with him in the episodes that I watched.
Yeah, and hey, Trace is a cool name, by the way.
I like Trace.
Easily.
Short for Tracy, probably, right?
Probably, but actually, I'm not gonna lie, I like Tracy as a guy name. I actually kind of like that name.
There's an ape on the original Ghostbusters. The ape is named Tracy.
That's right. Jesus. All right.
Tracy Scoggins.
Tracy
Smothers.
Yeah, Scoggins.
Do you think that would show the Ghostbusters cartoon, not the real one, but the other one? Do you think that you'll ever bring that one to TV Obscura?
I would love to. I love that cartoon. I think
I love it
too.
I love
I
that
used
cartoon.
to watch it every morning.
Let's
go Ghostbusters!
Oh, the animation's so great. It's so great. It's so great.
That's Filmation, right?
Anyways, yeah, Filmation, baby, Filmation. So
you
yeah,
love your Filmation.
I do. So check out the hour-long episode of Otherworld with the commercials. Do you remember the? Oh God, they have a promo for Burger King and it's or McDonald's, and it's this guy. He was the puppets. He was like a ventriloquist with his. I think Willie was his little doll.
Oh, and, Willie Tyler and Lester.
Yeah, Willie Tess. Yes.
Yeah.
They popped up. I'm like, oh yeah, they were great. They were so funny.
I don't remember those commercials at all. I wonder if they were West Coast maybe? Like, did McDonald's or Burger King ever do regional commercials, or were they always nationwide, do you think?
I think they were always nationwide, but I don't know. I wouldn't know because I was mostly in the West Coast, so I wouldn't really know.
You're telling me you don't know the background history of the marketing campaigns for McDonald's from the 80s, Diallo? God damn it.
I do know. I remember when McRibs came out, and I remember they were advertised. I remember seeing them advertised on the West Coast, but then I was on the East Coast that summer, and I saw McRibs there, so
all right, you have confirmed it then.
Yeah, if you want a real trip down memory lane, watch that episode, because man, there's some stuff that pops up and you're just like, oh my God, the Ford Escort used to be considered a sports car back in the day.
Oh man.
Yeah, my favorite thing on YouTube is to watch commercials from different eras. And
here's the thing: I used to edit out all the commercials. I wish I had not done that.
Yeah.
No, those are now the best ones. Are the ones that didn't have the commercials edited out. Yeah, if there was a time machine, I would do two things. One, I would save all my VHS tapes, and two, I would just be taping TV constantly just to put it on YouTube. 30 years later.
Those are the two things. Those are the two things.
Those two.
That's what you'd squander your ability with.
Everybody's always like, I would buy Apple.
Then I would amass a fortune, and then I would keep Space Above and Beyond on the air past the first season. That's what I would do. Guys and gals, Space Above and Beyond, another show.
What a segue.
What a segue. Another show.
What a segue.
It's almost like I'm a professional or something. Another show that was ahead of its time, and got lost way too soon before they could kind of probably hit their stride. But what's there is essentially one season, 24 episodes, a full season. Came out, Space Above and Beyond came out in 1995, aired from September through June on Fox. It was created by Glenn Morgan and James Wong. They're famous for co-writing a bunch of X-Files, episodes. That's kind of sort of, I don't know how they got their start, but that's kind of like, their claim to fame to begin with. And then James Wong went on to write and direct Final Destination 1 and 3, and then also The One with Jet Li. And then Glenn Morgan directed the awesome 2003 Willard with Crispin Glover.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, good for him. So the show takes place in the year 2063 and centers on the United States Marine Corps 58th Squadron of Space Aviator Cavalry. The squad is both infantry and pilots, and they're pilots flying the SA-43 Indo-Exo Atmosphere Attack Jet. Clearly, I enjoy like all the tech crap about this show. But you basically, so in this time, Earth space is, we're starting to colonize planets through, we don't have faster than light technology, but there's like these wormhole things, so we can kind of like colonize some planets. We send the first colony out there, it gets wiped out by this alien race, but we kind of don't know what happens. Send another colony out there, but later, but this new team that goes out to start, another colony has a connection to one of the main characters, but we'll get to that in a second. Then this colony gets attacked as well, and then we find out that there's these aliens called the Chigs, and they're humanoid looking, very cool design, and but we don't know, why they're fighting us. It's something that they sort of discover and examine through the course of the show, and then we follow essentially a squadron of these characters. There's about 4 or 5 main characters, and then filled out with another 10 or so background squadron people that can kind of die on episodes and everything. So it follows Nathan West, played by Morgan Weiser, Shane Venson, played by Kristen Cloak, who is married to Glenn Morgan. She's married to Glenn Morgan. Yeah, and by the way, I had a huge crush on her on this show. Then Rodney Rowland plays Hawks, and then a couple of the second tier is Joel de la Fuente is Lieutenant Paul Wang, and Lonnie Chapman is Vanessa Damphouse. But you might recognize Rodney Rowland. He's in The Walking Dead. He plays Baxter on the Walking Dead series, which I have not watched in a while, so I have not seen that. Kristen Cloak, who I, again, had a huge crush on. She was also in Final Destination. She was in Millennium. She was in the 2006 Black Christmas remake, but we won't talk about that.
She played his husband, or the wife to on Millennium. Didn't she play the wife to, what's his name?
Yes.
Lance Henriksen?
Lance Henriksen? Yeah,
Lance
I believe so,
Henriksen.
yep.
Right.
I love that show. Great show.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was a fantastic
underrated show.
So this came out in 95. One thing that kind of drew me towards it is the ultra realistic design and portrayal of things. You got to figure this was prior to stuff like Halo, Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, the show that Diallo and I we bonded over. We loved. It's funny, we actually kind of bonded over our mutual knowledge and love for Space Above and Beyond.
Yeah,
and they were like, "Hey, we should watch Battlestar Galactica."
Yeah.
But one thing that I loved about the show was it tried to have a very strong military theme to it. It wasn't hokey. It didn't try to be over the top. Like, the space carriers aren't fancy. They look like something the military would design. The spaceships that they fly, the Hammerhead jets, are amazing looking. They're really cool. But the thing is, they're not ion propelled or whatever. Like, when they have to do hard banking turns, they have these little thrusters that kind of shoot them to the side and everything. I think they do it better in Battlestar Galactica, but this was way before that. And I guarantee you a lot of what you saw in Battlestar Galactica they had conversations about Space Above and Beyond. They had to have, you know, they had to have been like, we want to go for this sort of look, this sort of realism, because their armor, their space armor, looks really freaking cool, but also practical. Like, it doesn't look like flashy or anything. It looks like something the military would probably come up with. And then it's like so far in the future that the show is set that it's like we've already had like a war with the AI. Like a whole nother TV series would have been like, that's the TV series, but here we're past it. We're past the war with the AI people, but it works its way into the story, and there's still like AI components in it. Not a part of their team, but there's like they encounter other AIs later, and then the AIs are actually kind of done really neat because they didn't just like overtake us because they saw the flaws in humanity. They kind of rose up because they were giving one simple command, which was take a chance. Just take a chance. Like that, they were given it like this like command to do that, which is basically gives them these gut feel. It's interesting. It's an interesting concept, and I implore anybody to look into the show further if this sounds interesting to you. But we also have another, like, again, from that AI war, we had these these test tube babies that were born, almost like Star Wars clone troopers, essentially. And they're grown, they're birthed as like teenagers, and now because of this past history, they call them tanks, you know, like because they were born in tanks and everything and whatnot. But because of this like sort of past animosity towards them, the regular people, you know, are prejudiced towards them on the squad. And this one guy, Hawks, has to prove himself. I mean, there's so much awesome stuff happening, social commentary going on, but at the same time, it maintains this steady action, you know, and this intrigue. We have the main character, West, is looking for his girlfriend. You know, we have another character, Cloak, who, you know, Vanessa, she's like trying to kind of reconnect with her parents, sort of. Like, they all have arcs. The cool thing is, every character on the show has an arc, and it's all backed up by freaking awesome action and you know, space action and whatnot. Oh, and then probably the biggest downside, truthfully, is the CGI. Guys and gals, it's 1995 TV CGI. If you can look past it, which I think we all can, I know the three of us can, and I think you just look past it, you know, but it's probably the worst part of it. But they do a good job of inserting a lot of practical stuff in there, and especially, inside the cockpit of the ships and all this kind of stuff. And it's really cool. I love it. Hey, everybody. Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
On the winter solstice, when the lasting darkness threatens to descend upon the land of Atalan once united, Magi in training, Wilt Gairn, and his shepherd, warrior in training, Bredain Adair, must find an ancient lost weapon before the ultimate ancient evil returns to the world of Eos. Hi there. I'm Diallo Jackson, writer of the First Noel's Chronicle podcast. The First Noel is an epic, family-friendly adventure told in serialized form. Think of it as Lord of the Rings meets, well, Christmas. Join us each week for the next thrilling chapter of The First Noel, now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all major podcasting apps, as well as Kindle Vella if you want to take a read. Thanks, and see you in Atalan. The Winter Tell is almost here.
And now, back to the show. Diallo, I know what you think of the show. Zach, what did you think of it? Did you know about it before we watched it for TV Obscura?
I did. I knew about both of these shows prior to you two picking them, but this was a really weird stage of my life when I wasn't really watching a whole lot of TV. And if I was, it would just purely be movies. I don't know why. I was going through this phase. I was just like, I was watching movies and wrestling. That was it. So I missed this. I'm bummed that I did because I wish I would have watched it back then. Before I go into my gush about the show, I just want to point out a couple things. One, Charles Martin Smith directed a few episodes. And if you don't know who Charles Martin Smith is, he is a director as well, but he is an actor. He was in American Graffiti, The Untouchables, Starman, The Experts, Deep Cover, which is another big movie that I love with Lawrence Fishburne.
He's a cop.
Right? Trick or Treat, Never Cry Wolf. The guy, you would recognize the guy if you saw him, but he directed 3 episodes of the show. And so that's a big deal for me because I think he's awesome. He's just a really talented director and actor.
Oh, in The Untouchables, he's the little guy with the round glasses.
Yeah, he's like the minute you see him, you'll know exactly who he is.
Holy shit. Okay, so he directed some episodes of this. Oh, that's awesome.
He did, and then someone else directed 6 episodes of this show named Thomas J. Wright. You might think, why would I be bringing him up? Well, it's kind of fitting that I'm bringing him up right now because we did open the show talking about wrestling, and he directed No Holds Barred, which I think is awesome. And he did direct an episode of Otherworld.
Oh, it's like full circle.
That's awesome, and not to take away from the awesomeness of that, but he also directed some episodes of Alias, which is an awesome TV show as well.
Yeah, so not that we'll cover Alias, but Alias is an awesome show. But yeah, he's been around. The fact that he directed Otherworld and that neither of us knew that connection, that's pretty awesome. So I just love that. Yeah, but back to the show. I think the concept's great. The cast is awesome. I watched just the pilot and I want to watch more. The pilot's like an hour and a half long, so at first I was like, oh man, this is going to be hard to get through because there's just like a lot of talking in the beginning, and like it was obviously setting up, very smartly written, but I wasn't prepared to like sit down and watch a 90-minute pilot. But if I broke it up into 2 parts, I definitely would have been like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. I love the fact that this show has as many episodes as it does have, and I want to keep going with it. The concept is brilliant, and it just goes to show you. I remember when this came on Fox, and I was kind of surprised because I was like, oh, shouldn't this just be like a syndicated show? Because I felt like the cool shows were the syndicated ones, at the time. But the fact that this got, because it had the X-Files guys behind it, and anybody associated with the X-Files could do no wrong at that time. At that time, X-Files was on fire. I love even though to us they're not unknowns, but I think to just general public, it's a bunch of relatively unknown actors at a time when the people were already beefing up their television casts with people that you knew. At least you threw 1 or 2 people in there. You're like, oh, I know that guy from, General Hospital or whatever. I don't know.
Well, that's why Arlie Emery was in the pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like he had to have one guy, right, to kind of draw you in, which is fine. But I like that it was relatively unknowns, people that I'm like, okay, this feels a little bit more realistic to me in a way.
Yeah.
You're not just playing a character. I want to continue to watch more of it because, the idea of the alien beings and looks so badass, and I actually think the special effects are pretty damn good for its time. And
the
probably
designs
a show
are
that was
fantastic. Like the costume designs are absolutely top notch, like movie level designs.
Totally. So I'm glad you brought this show to the table because honestly, I would have just forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Because why our show will continue to go on for many, many years, there are so many shows out there that can be easily overlooked, and this is definitely one of them. Easily overlooked, but shouldn't be overlooked if you're a fan of science fiction.
Well, if I was living close to you guys, we would all be watching it because I do have I'm holding it up on the screen. I have the box set. I have the complete series on DVD. I think I picked this up probably about at this point, probably 10 years ago or something, but
that's awesome.
Yeah. I think when it first came out, I didn't watch the entire series because it was like 1995. I was like a junior in high school. So like, you're not always around every, whatever it was, Friday or whatever to watch it. So I didn't actually get to watch it until the whole thing, until I got the DVD box set. But then again, I haven't seen it since 10 years or so. Diallo, this was one of the first sort of things we bonded over. And one of the the points that you would always make, which was, Fox, they cancel a lot of shows, but they also greenlight a lot of like high concept, genre shows, and this was one of them. So I always remember that. I always have your voice in my head anytime I want to get mad at Fox. Yeah, echoing in there. But what's your take on Space Above and Beyond, buddy?
Yeah, Space Above and Beyond, like obviously when you first brought it up years ago, it is in that obscura kind of category because it had that one season. Not a lot of people ever really talk about it, but it was just so like, I think I said to you this past week, like we talk a lot of a theme of this show is that, it was ahead of its time, but I think Space Above and Beyond is like the king of that. Like it's just like, if you're gonna like, this is the peak of before its time is this show. And as I was watching it the past few days, like, I was like, man, this show is like literally with like the script just would need like a little tweaks here and there, but it could easily be on TV right now. Like, and I'm watching, I think I mentioned to you, like watching The Expanse and other shows like that. I just did a watch of that this past like few months. And this show could easily sit right next to that show today. It's just, it gets so deep into like psychology, the PTSD of soldiers. It had this element of the effects of war, the how they related to the enemy. The enemy was this mysterious like cipher that they didn't know why they were fighting them. But as it comes out more and more, some tables get flipped, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And when I think about like things I've watched in my life that have had an impact on me. I think we talked about this years ago, Corey, but like the finale, just like, I remember watching the finale back then, and it just like, it did me in. Like it totally did me in. And I actually watched it again today. I watched the first couple episodes and I just skipped to the last episode because I just had to watch that finale again, and it's still the last shot just like, it does me in every time. And it's just such like it's ahead of its time, not just in terms of like it being a sci-fi show, but it's just the subject matter of it or the approach to it. Again, Battlestar Galactica really was able to kind of dig deep into that. It was deep in character. It was deep in like lore. There was a direction that they were going to head into, I'm sure, if it had been able to go past the first season.
Well, actually, they when they originally, I guess, pitched it or whatever, but its plan was for 5 seasons. They had a 5-season like Bible roadmap ready to go. So, and I think by the end, from what I understand from what I was reading, I think on Wikipedia or something, I think when they were writing that or creating that last episode, I think they knew that it wasn't going to be coming back. So I think they kind of like some threads that they were trying to pepper in earlier, I think they kind of just let go and then kind of just positioned a few things to be like, well, if this is the end, you can sort of extrapolate outwards. But yeah, they did leave you with that big bomb of like what the aliens look like, because they do a great job of like, you never see what they look like underneath, and then when they encounter that one alien that helps them, you think he's just a completely different species, and you don't know it's the entire time it's the same species that's against them. It's wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is the last episode does it put a button on the show?
No, it's not.
Not at all.
Yeah,
it's
not the biggest cliffhanger in ever made, but at the same time, it's. Yeah, they were still going to be trying to be going forward with it,
Yeah,
oh, bummer.
But it's just like, it's the way it's like, it's not quite a cliffhanger, but it's kind of open ended, but at the same way it closes the door. And like it's like you have to see it. Like, you just have to see. And there's some stuff that happens in that last shot. Just like it always gets me, and it got me today. And I was just like, man, this is heavy, and it's such a good show. And like I was thinking, if I ever somehow become a showrunner. I would I was thinking about how to continue the show, and you could like pick it up years later and with a new crew, and kind of have some of the old crew appear and keep the show going and keep it, because it's a show that could exist today. Like it easily could exist today. It would. And Amazon, Netflix, whatever. Like, there's nothing about this show that people would turn off to,
Yeah. And even if when you watch it now, like one of you guys said, it looks like the designs of things, like it looks like you could see it on TV now. If it wasn't in 4:3 aspect ratio, you could almost picture it like on TV now, because the ship designs were super cool. I liked how their cockpits could detach and then kind of rise up, and that's like the hangars were just like the cockpits,
cool.
which it's such an awesome like budget thing. Like, cool, we don't have to make a bunch of different hammerheads, but at the same time, well, yeah, that makes sense too, because like if the ship was coming in and it was on fire, you could sort of eject out, and then all those problems could be contained down below. I was like, I like that. It makes sense. And then I also like you get to see like their space armor. They have the fully pressurized suit version, and then they have like if they go to a world that actually has air, it's still like the same kind of armor, but it's like a little bit different, and the helmet's not there. You see, I love shit like that. Like you see in Starship Troopers how sometimes they'll have their long sleeved fatigues on, and then when another planet they go to, they have the short the black t-shirts on under their armor because it's like a warmer planet. I get a huge kick out of seeing variations in these armors, and I think it's just a cool attention to detail that, like, they don't have to do, but they do, because this show was, if anything, chock full of detail. And right down, I know you guys saw it in the first episode in the pilot, like even that police car when Hawks is getting chased down. Like, how cool was that looking? Like that Mad Max looking police car.
So cool. And I think that they probably had a pretty decent budget. For what they had at the time. That's what, it just seems like, I know there's so much content that can be produced right now, and you have all these shows that already have like a template and suffered purely because there wasn't an interest then, but there's definitely an interest now. So reboot this stuff, or just continue it, continue
it. And then like I'm playing games like Halo and playing games like XCOM. Man, I see that armor design. Like, I'm an armor file. I can see what artists do. I know so many people watched this show and it like left like an imprint on their mind. And like a lot of people say, oh yeah, Halo. A lot of the Marines in Halo, it looks like Colonial Marine stuff. I was like, I'll push back and say, I think it's a combination of Colonial Marines and Space Above and Beyond. And I wouldn't be surprised if you asked some of the people who designed like the very first Halo game, if they watched Space Above and Beyond, I guarantee you some of them will say, yes, I did, and I loved it.
Oh, hell yeah. There's so many influences there. But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Admit that you're influenced by shit. Don't pull a Tarantino. Be like, no, it's a good concept.
The special effects, like
I just love how easily he just slid Tarantino under the bus. Totally. He's like Tarantino's just walking next to us, and Zach just slides him under the bus right away.
I think he can take it. That's why I do it.
Yeah, I think his money can take it.
He's got so much money, he doesn't care what we think. But
if this was Family Guy, we'd have a cut to him with his headphones on, listening and crying silently to himself. Sorry, Diallo, I've cut you off like 3 times now.
Hey, no, with the special effects again, like when I was watching it, it definitely felt dated. And I told you I give you like a little context to it, and admittedly anecdotal from my exposure and memory of watching certain things around that time. But that was, I think, Space Above and Beyond was one of the first shows that did computer animated effects to that degree on television.
Yeah.
I know that it had been on other shows. I think there was my Alexa's talking. I'm sorry.
She's like playing Space Above and Beyond right now. Alexa, don't play Space Above and Beyond.
Don't play.
But please play Space Above and Beyond.
What was it say? Oh yeah, so like Babylon 5 I think was one of the first shows to kind of like make an attempt at it.
5,
but
nice.
But like to the degree that it was, and I think like this, because this show was around 95, and I think it was Deep Space Nine and around 97 or so when it was like the season 5 finale. There was like a large fleet of Starfleet ships coming toward the space station, and it was like one of the first Star Trek shots where it was like a CGI fleet, because it always had been models and that kind of stuff. So like this was being done before that. And so like, yeah, it's a little dated, but it actually was pretty ambitious for like the time. And so just, again, I wanted to give it a little bit of context, because again, it's so easy to just kind of like toss it aside and say it's not up to par, but actually for the time, it actually, like, they weren't even really doing it to that extent in a lot of films, really. So
And I think maybe that's why the CGI is so startling, is because the rest of the show holds up so incredibly well. Themes, writing, acting. Like, it doesn't feel like a mid-90s TV show. It feels like a 2021 TV show, and then you see the CGI, and you're like, oh my God. But you're 100% correct, Diallo. Like, if you take it in the context of when it was and when it came out, what it was like, the processing power that it would needed, that to run these things. I mean, it's insane to create these visuals. And at the time, I remember thinking they were amazing. But yeah, I think it's the juxtaposition of how well the show holds up is what makes the CGI look like lower. But I don't think that I don't think anyone should bar it from seeing. It shouldn't bar anybody from seeing it, because I think the show as a whole is fantastic, and I think it deserves to be watched and seen.
It's no Last Starfighter.
It is. It is no Vomit Hair Mountain. That is their base. That is their base on Last Starfighter.
Vomit Hair Mountain.
I love that movie so much, but I would love for them to just redo the CGI. Just, what I mean?
I said the same thing.
I don't give a shit. Just redo everything exactly the same. Just redo the CGI.
And you can do it in the era style, like they did that for those Star Trek, the original series. They redid it, and it looks yeah, and that was my I watched that on Netflix, and I actually like it. I think the CGI and the thing is, they don't change the shots. It's the same shot. They don't change the flow of anything. They just replace the model with CGI. Just do that for Last Starfighter, please. Yeah,
please do it. Yeah. Please.
Oh, man. All right. Well, here we go. Last up, 1997's Earth Final Conflict. Diallo, who created this show?
Some guy named Gene
Who?
Roddenberry.
Gene Rodden who?
Gene Rodden who?
You're blowing this for us, Gene.
Hey, guy. So it aired from 1997 to 2002. It actually, so it was created by Gene Roddenberry. It was originally called Battlefield Earth, I believe.
Wait, like the John Travolta movie?
Yeah, it was like Battlefield Earth, and then when they went into production, they changed it because the Travolta movie was coming out, and they didn't want to get it confused with it, so they changed it to Earth Final Conflict. Yeah, and it's good, like yeah, it was really good. It was really
Scientology.
good that they didn't do that.
Not gonna lie, Battlefield Earth is an awesome title though.
It is.
Yeah, oh,
and
yeah.
I heard that movie's actually not that bad.
I don't know.
It's got Richard Tyson and Forrest Whitaker in it, so come on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Forrest Whitaker hams it up in that movie, but he actually he hams it up just as much as in Rogue One.
As in
to be
Rogue
honest.
One, which I love.
And
I
Black
literally-
Panther.
I just watched Rogue One last night, and I love Saw Gerrera.
Boogalot.
Borgullet will know the truth.
And he does the same thing in Black Panther. I just watched it.
Oh,
just
man.
I'm like, dude. Oh boy. Never mind.
Black Panther will know the truth.
Did you see the last King of Scotland? Like when he plays Idi Amin? Yeah,
No.
like it's the same thing.
I
Same
did
thing.
see that.
Yeah, he's been doing that same thing ever since that movie. Anyways, it's really interesting because after Star Trek was over, Gene Roddenberry had a bunch of shows that he had always was trying to push. They always had this concept of either like aliens coming to Earth or there was one where he had, I think it was called Genesis 2, where a man went into suspended animation and wakes up in the 25th century, and it's like a post-apocalyptic Earth. There was which eventually became, and they redid it and became Andromeda.
Yeah.
And that actually,
cool.
that premise was actually taken. And if you watch Star Trek Discovery season 3, it's basically that same premise from Andromeda, which is from Genesis 2, which.
Well, the funny thing is, Andromeda Connection is Lisa Ryder in this show. She was
is
on
it?
Andromeda. Yeah.
Wow.
Boone's,
Okay.
Boone's wife. She
Yeah.
was on Andromeda, but I know her from Jason X. But that's
Okay.
just-
Yeah. Jason X. That's
How
right.
dare
Yeah.
you?
Um,
Oh yeah.
But John Saxon actually. Let's talk about TV movies. John Saxon was on the pilot of that Genesis 2. It was kind of like Earth 2 kind of show.
Okay.
Back
Nice.
in like this late, I think it was like the late 60s, early 70s. I think it was the early 70s. Anyways, so there was sort of like an evolution. He was always trying to get those. There was another show called Questor Tapes. None of it ever really took off. And because Paramount always wanted him to go back and do Star Trek, and eventually did the movies and then Star Trek: The Next Generation. He passed away in 1991, and his wife Majel Roddenberry actually took his notes that he had for this show and went into production to make Earth Final Conflict. The
cool.
first season, at least, was a big enough hit so that they actually ended up taking his notes and then redoing Andromeda a year later. Yeah.
Okay, so so it was like, okay, this is a hit, so we're gonna now go create Andromeda as well. So now essentially there's two like post-mortem shows essentially happening. Okay.
Yeah. So there's it. So yeah, this came out in 97. I think Andromeda was around 99 or so. I can't quite remember, but I never actually watched Andromeda. But yeah. Basically the premise is in a not too far away Earth, a race of aliens called the Talons come to Earth, and they basically just like, and we always have these scenarios where the aliens come and they want to conquer us, and the movie Independence Day, but in this case they actually come offering us peace. So they give us technology, kind of make the world a better place. Everything seems good. They set up embassies all across the world. And then there's a group, or actually, so there's a cop. His name is William Boone, played by Kevin Kilner.
Kevin Kilner, a.k.a. the guy that's literally been in every single TV show ever made.
He's been in every TV show ever made, but my favorite guest spot that he's ever done was he played the dad in American Pie 2 with the scene with the walkie-talkies, and I don't know if you remember that scene. Not going to go into it. It might not be safe for work. But
I just want to say too, he has the best IMDb. I took this on my iPhone picture profile photo. It's clearly a recent one. It's great.
The one where he's just on the beach, holding a glass of
His,
wine.
his hair's like flown back. He looks like he
He's
just
like, hey
woke
guys,
up.
He's got his
here's
COVID
where I'm
mask
at.
on, so you know it was in the last year or so with his glass of wine. And, yeah.
Here's what being on every single TV show ever made will get you.
Hashtag residuals, yo.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so there's a billionaire named Jonathan Dors who's played by Corey knows who this guy was.
Yep.
Can I say it? Can I
Yeah,
say
go
it?
ahead. Yeah, say it.
Please.
David Hemblin, who played Lord Dredd on Captain Power.
Also, another thing I didn't know, he was actually the voice of Magneto on the X-Men cartoon, which I actually did not. I had no
that's
idea.
cool. Fun
And
fact
he's been
indeed.
on a lot of other stuff. He's on La Femme Nikita and a couple other things. But yeah, he gets assassinated. Corey was upset by that. But
I sort of was live tweeting, but just texting Zach and Diallo as I'm watching the show, and I was like, "Hey, he's in it! It's Lord Dredd from Captain Power, and he's dead in the first 10 minutes of the episode,
And
but
he's
he
dead.
comes back. He comes back, but I was like, this is Gene Roddenberry's Game of Thrones. This is insane.
Gene Roddenberry's Game of Thrones.
It basically turns out that he he's sort of faking his death because he wants to look into who these Talons really are. And he has established what's called the Resistance. And what they do is, there's a lot of cloak and dagger stuff going on, which is really intriguing. But they basically set up Boone to be an insider. There are these implants called CVIs that are like these alien creatures that bond with a person, and they take over their brain so that they follow the Talons. But Majel Roddenberry, who's on the show, is a doctor, and she does something to it so that he actually has his free will. So William Boone basically has to kind of like straddle the fence and figure out what's going on with the Talons. But one of the things that's really intriguing about the show to me is that the Resistance, the nature of the Resistance and the nature of the Talons is always really ambiguous. You never really know who's the good guy in either. There's a character, the main alien character in the first like kind of half of the seasons is named Da'an, played by Lenny Parker, and Da'an is you get a sense that Da'an is good, but then maybe Da'an is bad. You don't know. And they bring in another character later on called Zoor, who's almost definitely evil. Anyways, so there's another agent that plays alongside William Boone named Sandoval, and he's definitely sort of like the foil to William Boone. He's sort of evil. There's a character named this guy I really love. His name Augur. He's sort of like the hacker character. There is another character who's like a pilot. She is played by Lisa Howard. She plays Lily Marquette. And Lisa Howard actually was on Highlander, the series, which I really love. So it ran for 5 episodes. So one of the 5 seasons. One of the things though about it that I really love the first season. It's really a nuanced science fiction, cloak and dagger. Who's good? Who's bad? I don't know. We're trying to resolve mysteries. We're trying to see what the Talons are up to. But behind the scenes, I think I remember this at the time. I think there was a contract dispute with Kevin Kilner, and I think he was kind of like a dick also behind the scenes. So they actually ended up booting him from the show in the finale. So
Wow.
so they kill him off, and they replace him with another character named Liam Kincaid. who's played by Robert Leshak. And that character, like once that happened, the nature of the show totally changed. And they were always kind of rewriting it, trying to figure out what to do. Liam Kincaid was like half alien, half human, and he had powers, and the show basically started to get really muddled. So from season 2 to 5, it just deteriorated.
So at least, I mean, in the pilot, you can tell that they were just really trying to set up Boone to be the central point of the viewer. You know, his wife dies in the pilot. One of the hooks to get him to sort of, join the Talon team is that when he gets this implant, it also makes him smarter and everything like that. But one of the things that it comes with is that he can live in his memories, so he'll never truly be without his wife. But even in the pilot, you find out that the Talons had something to do with like killing his wife. So you're like, okay, you're like, yes, it's like the elevator pitch is it's like V, but with a like more subtle, more like a bigger, longer game plan. And I like the fact that it doesn't like just start with them landing. Like they've already been here for 3 years. I like that. And that's kind of like how Alien Nation sort of is like that, where it's like we're not there at the beginning. We're there when everybody, has been acclimated to it, which I think is much more interesting. But yeah, you can tell that the elevator pitch was like, we're going to do V, but we're going to do it the Gene Roddenberry way. We're going to do it this very intriguing way. And you're never going to quite know who's good or who's bad, because at the end of the day, aliens aren't human. No matter what, they're not human, and they're going to have different motivations than we have, and we're not going to understand them. But like, I like how the Talons are also kind of like neutral. They weren't like male or female, and like they kind of really made her up to be. It's a female actor, but they made her up to be very androgynous looking and stuff like that. So in the 5 seasons, is there a conclusion? Do they wrap it up, or is this also left hanging on the vine?
Yeah, no, they definitely wrapped it up. Like by the time they got to cool. there were so many characters that died and left, and I think at some point, like the Liam Kincaid character who became the lead ends up dying or going away. The last season, William Boone comes back, even though they had killed him off in the first season. But by the time they got to the last season, it flipped to this whole other thing going on. There was these other creatures called the Atavis, who were sort of like a melding of the Talons and this other race of creature. It was a mess by the time it got to the last season, basically. Which is why, this is why I kind of say, like, this definitely why, like, it's not obscure because it was on for 5 seasons, but really it's like the first season was like sort of pitch perfect, really good, and it just struggled from there on out, and which was reflected in like the ratings, and a lot of people that followed the show just kind of like gave up on it, and the writers gave up on it, and they kind of like waited it out till they got to the end. But yeah, I really I was really into that first season. One thing that I really loved about it actually was the score, the soundtrack. It was by an artist named Mickey Urbe and Maribeth Solomon. They actually got, I think, nominated for an Emmy for the first season of the show, and they won like a Saturn Award for one of the tracks.
Nice.
I actually have it. I actually had the soundtrack. I have it now. I listened to it over the years. It's sort of like this. It's around the time Enya and stuff was around, Clannad, so it's very like new agey, but a world beat, but it has kind of like a lot of hints of other stuff going on. So yeah, it was just like the first season was like a really nuanced sci-fi kind of show. Like, for instance, in the second episode, they actually resolve who actually killed Boone's wife, and it's a little bit more complicated than you would think it was. And it actually, and it's sad not just for him, but for the person that ended up killing his wife. So it was like it's just like a very thoughtful it was actually sci-fi. I like to call it contemporary sci-fi, where like all the settings and trappings of the world looked like today. They just had like some hints of technology that were advanced. Like there's a scene where he talks about his buddy being in the War of 01, 2001, which I guess we just got out of one that we started in, but
the Forever War.
Yeah, the Forever War. But anyways, yeah, it was a really great show, and like, you know, we talk about again shows that were ahead of its time. Like in this case, it was almost like it was perfect for its time, but it just couldn't figure out how to keep going after that first season. And I just feel like the potential that it had was kind of wasted. And I think that's why, like, I have such high regard for at least that first season, and always kind of feel like, what if when I watch some of the later ones. So yeah.
Well, shoot, it lasted 5 seasons. That's insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
And like I kind of like I remember,
Yes.
I remember tapping out at a certain point, like mid 3rd or 4th season, and then coming back in that last season because I knew Boone was coming back and wanted to see how it was going to end. And but yeah, it was on for a while, all the way up until Firefly came on the air.
Yeah, I mean, I sorry, Corey, I didn't mean to jump in, but or I guess I did because I did. But it that pilot, I was captivated, or I wanted to keep watching more when it ended, and I forget what the line was that they said to Boone. They're like, "You don't know who you can trust," or something like that. And it was like, "Ooh, I love that." There was a VHS choose your own adventure game that came out in the 80s called based on iRobot, Isaac Asimov's iRobot. It was a VHS thing, like fast forward to this part or something like that. And I don't know, the way it was kind of staged and element, the way it was laid out, like kind of the whodunit, you know, all these mysteries, like what's going to happen, who do you trust, who do you not trust. I love all that stuff. So, I mean, I was hooked. I want to watch more of it.
Yeah. I remember when this came out, and I too watched the pilot on this one. I totally forgot that it was Gene Roddenberry, you know. And yeah, I thought it was very intriguing. I like all the things that they are setting up. It's saddened to hear, you know, disheartening to hear that it doesn't kind of come to fruition in the end, because I think the things that they're trying to do with it looks pretty freaking awesome and seems really cool. And I like the technology stuff that they're messing with, because, you know, some of it's organic and everything. And yeah, we've seen that before, but then what I really liked was this idea that they used this virus to kind of make you. The virus helps the organic cybernetics like kind of merge with you, but at the same time they also like makes you susceptible to kind of like the way they put it is like, you know, putting the aliens' needs sort of before yours. Like it sort of just changes your priorities. But that's it's such an intriguing idea, because also you don't really know that it's happening to you. And yes, like Boone takes, you know, they set it up, it's like, okay, this doctor figured out like how to, you know, make so that it won't happen to Boone, right? Like, but you don't ever, I don't think really truly know, because you don't really know if he's been. So now at this point, like you have this like this virus in you, and what if at one point the you know the aliens have an idea that you're like, oh, I think that's actually a good idea. Then you're like, wait a minute, is that the virus or is that me talking? But you know, that's a crazy concept, and a concept that's in 2021. I'm not talking anything COVID, but we understand that viruses can change the way we think. Like we know so much more about viruses. So this idea that like you can also use a virus to do this thing where it's not trying to kill you, but it's changing you, you know, it's very interesting.
But it does apply to COVID right now too, because you know, as far as that, the what's it doing to you? You know, going in your body.
Yes, yeah. It still definitely has some painful current counterparts, but it's but like you said, Diallo, it's a contemporary sci-fi, but I think it's sci-fi in the truest sense, and Gene Roddenberry is that kind of sci-fi writer where he uses these ideas to talk about bigger concepts, and and I can only assume moving forward, I'm sure they discuss like what it means to be human. And all this kind of stuff and everything, and we've talked about it before. That's what good sci-fi does, but
No doubt.
I probably won't move forward with this one just because knowing that it doesn't pan out the way you want it to, but it definitely was intriguing enough that I was like, I like where it's going. I like what it's putting down. I wish that they stuck the landing.
Poor Boone.
It was like
Poor Poon.
one of the things about like it's in the name of a conflict, but that was one of the things that made the show work, was that he had there was like a conflict between the characters for much of the show. So again, like this Jonathan Doerr's character, who's the billionaire, who's running the resistance, has Boone in there as a sort of like a secret agent, but Boone doesn't really trust him, right? So he doesn't know what this guy is trying to get at, but he also doesn't trust the aliens either. And then he has the CVI in his hand, which is supposed to make him actually be subservient, so he's constantly having to actually play that role, which was one of the interesting predicaments about the show. Like there was often times where he was trying to solve some mystery, but then he couldn't like go all the way and get his way because he had to always serve the Talons. So it was a really well done, high-minded, kind of high-level first season of it, sci-fi. It was really done really well, and it sort of became let's get better ratings and dumb it down after that. And part of that came from just having to scramble with the new actor and have this whole setup with the new actor, and after killing off Boone. But they still had really strong characters. It's kind of like I put it in that same category that I personally dislike Star Trek Voyager, but the characters were actually really well done. And that's kind of how I feel about Earth Final Conflict, is like, as much as I don't necessarily like the plot of the show, I actually thought the characters were all done really well. So I still cared about like kind of what happened to them at any given moment. So yeah, Earth Final Conflict. If you ever get a chance to check out any of Roddenberry's other older stuff, I would kind of go down a little rabbit hole and find out what he was doing in between 1969 and 1979, when between Star Trek the Motion Picture and Star Trek the original series last season. Like he did a lot of cool stuff that he was trying to get off the ground, and I think again, some of it was a lot more high-minded than I think like the world was kind of ready for, and he used a lot of his ideas ended up being in, say, like Star Trek The Next Generation, like the Questor tapes show. There's like a lot of stuff with artificial intelligence that sort of like ended up becoming what data became. And so
you almost wonder what Gene Roddenberry would be able to do nowadays when shows like Raised by Wolves is out there talking about some heavy shit. No spoilers or anything there, but that gets into like AI and stuff like that. You almost
that show's brilliant.
Yeah, I've only seen the first episode. It's actually the next show I think we're gonna watch. I loved it.
Really?
Yeah, I loved the first episode. It was insane. But you also have to realize that we have shows like Raised by Wolves because of people like Gene Roddenberry. Like, as much as I would love to see what he could do now, we wouldn't have now if we didn't have him back then. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you know, one of the things about that is like, so Earth Final Conflict was, 20, 22, 24 episodes or whatever. And you brought up Raised by Wolves, and that was like 6 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
Short. Yeah, and then the first season of Battlestar Galactica was like 13 episodes or 10, whatever it was. So yeah, like when you take into account the amount of episodes that they were sort of like forced to tell back then, it sort of makes sense why, like even with Space Above and Beyond, like if that show had been like a 10 episode season, I could see it have maybe being able to go a lot further than it did. But like, again, life was just a little bit different and TV was a little bit different. And we're only just now getting into that format where 7 episodes can be a whole season and we move along, at least in the United States. So,
Yeah.
Right.
And it's also the same way that like, acting was different, back then, back in the 80s, acting on TV shows was different. And I always wondered, like, why? I was like, why is acting so different back then? And I actually heard I was listening to an interview on a podcast, and they were talking to somebody. They're like, yeah, I had friends that worked back then, but, like, you have to understand, if a character had to, like, have a gun behind their back or something on, like, the A-Team, you had to project that on this tiny TV, like, you had to be able to project ideas on small screens. And I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of fall in the rut of, like, getting too used to watching everything on my giant TV. And it's like, oh, yeah, the size of the format, the size of the medium sort of dictated how to sort of act, so you could sort of project outwards and you could actually see what you were doing. I was like, oh, I never actually thought about that. But
filming now.
But it's like, it's like now, like, what would Earth Final Conflict been like if they didn't have to adhere to a 24 episode season? They could have done your typical, FX, 12 episode seasons. And I think you can do a much, much better show than trying to make a full season, like this.
Yeah. And it wasn't like it had special effects, but it wasn't like it didn't lean on it to be
right, like
a good show. And like the stuff that they do on there could easily be done today. So that's one of the reasons why I think it is so good, at least that first season, because it really is just about the intrigue than it is about the sci-fi spaceships and which is, those parts are cool, like the ships that they use to fly around
and how they can go in between dimensions. Again, that's another concept that in 2021 we're all cool with, but back then that's a pretty heavy concept right there.
And I think too, like, just to go back to what you're saying about having a shorter season or tightening it up, the concepts are all there. It could easily another yet again another show that you could just take the concept and roll with it and tweak it. And I love it. I love that you said it's Game of Thrones and sci-fi version.
Yeah,
it's great.
And I
for,
know
for good or bad.
for good or bad.
Yeah, true. With minus dragons and a bad storyline of people kissing at the end or whatever.
And it's funny because that V led to this, in some way, and then they rebooted V and made that much more like realistic and intriguing. And I guarantee you, the people who rebooted V were like, let's try to do it like Earth Final Conflict and make it this like sort of intriguing sort of thing. So it's interesting how it kind of goes full circle like that. But also, like most things, I think that V reboot didn't kind of meet its full potential, and then I think it was also canned early. I watched the pilot for it. It didn't suck me in like the original V did. Which
was a tough one.
Yeah, and that's a show, by the way, that I love. I don't even know if we need to bring it to TV Obscura because I feel like everybody knows V. I would like to actually do some sort of tribute to V in a different way, like maybe an all TV Obscura episode or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we all loved V, right? Growing up as kids.
Oh, Jesus,
I love V, but I think the new show suffered because they didn't have Mark Singer in it.
Yeah. Also didn't have that cool ass those red outfits with the and then also the cool helmet visor things.
Right. I mean, it was. It didn't have
the punch, you know.
Yeah, it didn't have like the allegory that the original one had. Plus, we already knew what the deal was. Like the original one, it was like it was trying to figure out what the mystery was, right?
Yeah.
But this in the remake, you already know. So, and they tried to do some other stuff, but it just didn't work.
There's a fun fact about V and Rad that I heard on $2 late fee. Zach, can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, the twins in Rad, the BMX twins, who were part of the bike crew that comes in to take over the town and win Hell Track. They are the outfits they're wearing. I call them Tomax and Zaymot because they look like Tomax and Zaymot from G.I. Joe. They're wearing costumes from the V show.
Oh, wow.
From the actual show. So from the costume department. So
that's crazy.
Fun fact.
Dude, I'd be able to spot that a mile away. I loved V, but because the reason I loved V is because I love the way that like the alien grunts looked, like the alien soldier looked. I thought they were really freaking cool. And I liked all the ships too. I thought the fighter jets in V, the shuttles and stuff looked really cool.
I just wish they made a doll for it. I wish they actually went full tilt boogie and like did a whole toy line.
Yeah.
Like 3 3/4 size, not dolls.
With like removable heads or something like that. That'd be cool. And I remember that the big doll is like the Mezco size one, the 12-inch ones. Yeah, but it was cool because you had the face that was ripped open. You could see the alien underneath.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Oh man, that show is fucking great.
Yeah, it's an iconic TV moment when what's her name, Diana, when she swallows the guinea pig or whatever.
Dude, that's I mean, as a kid, man, I saw that in real time. Like I watched that on air, and that blew me away. I don't know what it was, but I sent the GIF of Chris Farley. Remember in the SNL sketch where he's like trying to be a Chippendales dancer, you know? And I was like, I sent it to somebody and they're like, this is hilarious. And I was like, you know what? I saw this episode when it aired live. And I was like, and it's such a huge episode of SNL, and such a huge moment. But I like the Chris Farley era, that was my SNL growing up, But there's some great moments.
Could we do an obscure? I guess we could do moments. I don't know, moments from obscure moments
from SNL. Yeah.
No. From like obscure TV moments.
Yeah, like the moment in what was it? Fucking what you talking about, Will? It's Different Strokes, with the molester.
Yeah.
Gordon Jump.
Dudley in the bike shop from Gordon. What did you say? Gordon Jump Street? Is that was his name from WKRP?
Gordon Jump. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
He went from
WKRP
being
in Cincinnati.
He went from fondling records to fondling Dudley. Sorry.
Very special episode.
On a very special episode. Mummy came in my house. All right, guys. This was a awesome episode of TV Obscura.
I loved it.
I think all 3 TV shows deserve a spotlight. I think they deserve to be, checked out again. I think they all had something to say, and they all had something to say that was important to today, like it was ahead of its time, and what they're trying to say is interesting now, and I implore everybody to check out all 3 of these shows. I think they're fantastic. Zach, any final thoughts on any of these shows or anything?
Yet again, 3 similar vibes going on, I guess, in a way. I love the fact that my show and your show had that bizarre connection, which is weird, but I love that they're similar and different at the same time.
Yeah.
Obviously you can see the similarities between your 2 shows, your guys' shows, because of the time frame when they came out.
Yeah.
Versus mine, which is dramatically different because it's the 80s and obviously the vibe is different. But yet again, 3 shows that one, Otherworld, I obviously was super familiar with, but I'm glad. I look forward to digging a little deeper into both, and then ultimately deciding whether I'm going to pull the eject cord or continue to boldly go where many other people have gone before.
Diallo, any final thoughts on this episode of TV Obscura?
Yeah, like Otherworld. I happened to watch it last year, and it without any prompting, something about it like drew me in, and so I was really glad Zach picked it, and it was an opportunity for me to watch more episodes. And again, there's
Awesome.
a quality of like something to it that I just feel like was lost for us. Like it could have been something more. Space Above and Beyond, in my continuum of how Battlestar Galactica ended up becoming the show that it was. Space Above and Beyond definitely was an influence on that, along with Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager. And then the Earth Final Conflict. I actually am gonna probably rewatch the entire series, like the first one, just so that I can relive the moments, and then the other four to like throw stuff at my TV and complain why they didn't do this or that right. but it's still like it takes me back to like a time that I that I remember and love, so that'll be fun for me.
Yeah. Otherworld was, man, I didn't see that coming at all. That was wild. Space Above and Beyond, I still have such a love for that movie, TV show, and it holds a special place in my heart because Diallo and I bonded over it very early on in our friendship. And then Earth Final Conflict, even just watching the pilot, like you can tell, like, just Gene Roddenberry's a master craftsman, and in the fact that this is distilled from his notes down to, through his wife and everything and through writers, you got to wonder what it's there's so much there, because he's such a creative force that you almost wonder what the show would have been like if he was actually alive to see it happen. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's amazing how you can see his fingerprints are there, even though he was passed away years before the show came out, and that is a testimony to just that man's creative genius and just where his head was at, just way ahead of everybody else, and always. There's this intrigue and everything, but I think there's always hope with everything Gene Roddenberry does. There's always this hope, this positivity to it, or at least a hope that, something good will come out of it. And I feel like that's something that is desperately lacking in all forms of sci-fi and media these days. It's just
society.
Yeah, in society. Just give us a little fucking hope, guys. Just something. And sci-fi, I think, it can be gritty and everything, but sometimes it can also be hopeful. And I think, Earth Final Conflict, where no matter where it goes, that pilot at least left me with some hope. So I think all three of these shows are worth checking out if you like sci-fi.
Agreed.
So if you like Christmas, you should check out Diallo.
The First Noel by A. Diallo Jackson.
Tell us about that podcast, my friend.
Yeah, so The First Noel is my, it's a fantasy Christmas novel that I am currently publishing on Kindle Vella in serialized chapter form. And I'm doing a podcast as well that appears on all major podcasting platforms. I am doing the reading of it, and again, I've not really done voice actor stuff before, so it's always been an interesting thing for me, but it's been kind of fun. And as of next week, I am pushing to have a weekly release in both reading form and audio form. So picking up my schedule and looking to have the story all finished and completed and done by Christmas this year, which, will be on theme with what the story's all about. So Lord of the Rings meets Christmas, if that's my elevator pitch.
And I always have a link in the episode notes to that as well. Zach, we are gearing up for a Podcasting After Dark $2 late fee crossover event soon. What movie are we going to be discussing, my friend?
We are discussing 1986's The Wraith.
The Wraith.
Starring Charlie Sheen. But Corey joined me on $2 late fee with my co-host Dustin. We recorded a great episode, hilarious episode of that. That's airing now. By the time this episode airs, it should be airing now. And then the following week will be the breakdown episode of The Wraith on Podcasting After Dark. So a lot of fun to be had. And then following that, Matthew Berry, who plays Billy in The Wraith. And if you don't know who Matthew Berry is, but if you know The Wraith, then you should know Billy. He's one of the main characters of the movie. We have an interview on $2 late fee the week after the Podcasting After Dark episode. So it's a bomb. It's a triple threat, if you will, of The Wraith.
Oof. The Wraith. Oh man, I was waiting so long to watch that movie. I'd never seen it before, and I knew that Zach loved it. So sometimes in the back of my head, I know kind of what not to watch. I would rather keep it fresh, and we have a ton of fun on the $2 late fee discussion. A whole lot of fun with Dustin. A lot of yucks to be had, and I cannot wait to do the breakdown with Zach on Podcasting After Dark. The Wraith is a wild ride, and I had some wild revelations on my first viewing of it. So you'll listen. The $2 late fee will be the more like sooner, like closer to the revelation. So it's a lot of the first impressions. So go listen to that. Of course, I'll promote it on the Instagram and everything, and with links. The Wraith is wild. My God. Oh man. But yeah,
where can we find you, Corey?
Oh, if I'm not on Podcasting After Dark, I'm talking to our pal Adam every week about Seinfeld on Cartwright, a Seinfeld podcast. And we're having a blast. We're a few episodes into season 7 as of right now, and we are rocking and rolling. We're having all kinds of fun. And, we're also having all kinds of fun over on the Podcasting After Dark Patreon. All kinds of interviews happening. We just released our Catherine Mary Stewart interview, and we are in the process, Zach's in the process of editing our Rob Paulson interview, and that'll be out this month. And we have all kinds of cool stuff. We have our monthly Wrap Up After Dark episode comes out. We have that. We do a few things here and there. I'll probably release another, like I did with the World War Z review. I'll probably release one for Aliens Fire Team, just a little solo review by myself, Aliens Fire Team Elite. But yeah, we have all kinds of fun on Patreon. It's a good time. Check us out. Check out everything on the BFOP network. Check out Blast from Our Past. Check out Action. Check out Talking Back. Check out Throwback Trivia Takedown. And of course, check out $2 late fee. Those guys over there rock. So love you guys. Love TV Obscura. It's so much fun. I hated that it took us like over a month and a half to get to the next episode, but we're back on regular recording sessions now.
Yes.
And as always, Diallo,
we'll catch you on the obscure side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Back, the podcast where we like to chat about past achievements in movies, comics, video games, and more. I'm your host Tim, and with me today in studio is co-host Dean.
Hey, Tim.
Dean, huh?
This isn't a full episode. This is actually just an ad. All we have to do is tell everyone that our podcasts come out on Mondays, and they can find us on their favorite podcatcher. If they're into movies, comics, or video games, they should definitely check us out.
Oh, well then, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Talking Back.